Okay, I think we're ready to get started. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting? Do I have a...
I move that we approve them as read.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion to approve the meeting for the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see you all. Thank you, Brenda, for taking over. It's her first official meeting as our new chairperson, and Kyle doesn't know what it's like to sit back in the audience again. Appreciate his many years of service and all of y'all's ongoing commitment to what we do here. We thought we were going to have guests today, and I think some of you I may have shared that with, and I think we will yet, maybe the next meeting. Our new director was really going to try to come out and be joined by Terry Watkins, who I know Lynn knows. She is our new executive communications director. Do I have that right?
Yes.
So she oversees public information, and he's designed that job a bit differently than what Joyce Jackson has, who's always been kind of the face of corrections in Oklahoma. She was going to come out with him as well, and Marilyn Davidson, who is the legislative liaison. Those of you that have met Neville Massey over the years, Neville served in that capacity for, probably 10 years, and she retired. So a lot of new faces in different positions across the agency, mostly tied with the turnover in the agency's leadership, but we've reorganized quite a bit. I talked a little bit about that last time. So we hope that he will be able to come in maybe the next one we have in November or into 2015, so you all will get a chance to meet him. And more importantly, I want him to meet you all, because I think he will find that this is truly a very unique advisory board, and one that has a history that I don't think any other facility can match. So anyway, we were disappointed that their schedule didn't allow them to come, but we're still working on them. Freeland, could you give us a treasurer's report?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll go back and pick that up.
Very little action since the last meeting. I missed the last meeting, but very little action. We have gained interest income and a few things like that with the Prison Chapel Care Fund of about $1,200. Our balance now is $41,142.64, up from $39,900 roughly. Checkbook account still has $1,042.60. I don't know if you all knew that. We're transferring into this prison care fund, but I still have a little bit left of checkbook balance at the bank. So,
okay. When we did the donation for the coffee craft, did we do that?
We voted to do it. I don't know if we did or not.
We got it, but did it come out of the foundation or out of the checking
I
account?
missed the last meeting.
I don't know.
I think it came out of the foundation, because we probably didn't know that there was still that there was a checking account balance, or we'd forgotten about it. So I appreciate you knowing that.
Yeah. Sorry about
150.
Oh no.
It's gone.
Okay. Alrighty.
So
There has been one expenditure out of the big fund,
out of the big one,
which
okay.
probably
But
would be
it doesn't
reflected on the
show.
next statement that they sent. Okay. Well, it's been a hopping many months here. We are still, just a brief update, we are still really struggling with staff. Good news is our local academies are going very well. We just finished, we graduated our second group. We had four cadets in this last academy. Or five. And so many of you know we're getting to do that in coordination with Northwest Tech, who have just been wonderful to work with. We did one early in the summer. We did one now. I don't know. We wait until we get at least 12 to 15 between us, Crabtree, and Weymouth Key before we convene another academy. But as soon as we have those numbers, then we start the academy, and we have Andrea Jordan, who is the training officer, was the training officer at Crabtree, has been designated as the person to coordinate the academy. So she can convene those pretty darn quick. So we're waiting to see for the numbers to go back up on that. But we still are really struggling trying to find enough officers. Still on 12-hour shifts. Department, we're exploring lots of things in the department. I would say there's probably still 5 or 6 facilities that are still on 12-hour shifts. We don't have enough staff to do 8-hour shifts. And the 12 hours are incredibly taxing. If you see our officers around town, a kind word is always appreciated, because they are truly. We'll be on our second year. The end of this year, we'll be on 12s for 2 years. When it was good enough, when we had 4 days on and 3 days off, it was, they could at least recuperate. 4 12-hour days are pretty long days, but we've been running 5 12-hour days and sometimes 6. And, you're just living and working. So that probably contributes to why we're still having a hard time keeping people. We gain a few and we lose a few. So I appreciate all of y'all's efforts to send people our way. I know you do. And, we've still got people. We've got 2 or 3 right now that we're working backgrounds on. So we still have a few trickle in. But it is still a huge issue, especially for Northwest Oklahoma. But there's still a few other areas of the state that struggle as well. The other 2 things, big things that we've got going on, we just found out last week, and I don't know if y'all followed this in the paper. There's been a national initiative called PREA, the Prison Rape Elimination Act. It's been a national agenda to reduce the incidence of sexual assault, sexual exploitation of offenders in any lockup facility. So that could be prisons, that can be jails, that can be local detention facilities. And so there's been quite a lengthy process for states to engage in that process. And so to make a long story short, there he is, Justin. I don't want to steal Justin's thunder. When the governor has to commit for the entire state. And so there was some discussion. States can choose to opt in or opt out of PREA compliance, but for opting out, you are penalized by losing federal grant funding. So there was a huge incentive that the government put to get states involved in making changes that make prison safer. So we're starting down that process, and I have invited Justin Lau. We didn't get a new staff member, so he is the fortunate one who got selected as he has a full-time job as a case manager, but now he is also our facility PREA coordinator. And he's going to come up and tell you a little bit about what this whole national agenda means for Bill Johnson. So, Justin, come on.
Well, good afternoon. Glad to see you all here today. As she said, PREA is a national initiative, and here at DOC, our mission here is to protect the public, the employee, and the offender. And the best way to keep doing that is to reduce sexual assault, offender on offender, offender on staff, and that also includes harassment. So we're trying to keep things safe for both the employee and the offender. It's a national standard, and we want to keep people, give them the ability to report things that are going on that shouldn't be. We have several mechanisms in place for the offenders to report anything that would happen. For sure they can tell any staff members, report that to us, and we'll start the process of the investigation, or send that out to other people that are have the ability to further investigate those issues. Also, they have the ability to, we use an electronic phone system for the offenders where they're able to dial out and make their collect calls. We do have a system in place for them to make a call, and the recording can be made, and then someone can follow up with that. If they don't want to tell a staff member here, they can report that as well. So that's another mechanism we have in place just to make sure that things are reported as they need to be. Also, if they don't feel comfortable reporting that to us, they can also contact an outside agency. I believe OSBI, from our training, may be able to help us as far as those that contact outside the agency. Sometimes the offenders don't want to contact, so they may contact their family and say, hey, would you report this to me? So what they can do is they can, could be somebody from the church, could be a family member, former boss, someone like that could report that and just allow somebody to be aware of it so we can start the process. The spirit of PREA is to be able to report this with freedom from retaliation, and DOC does have a no-tolerance policy, so we try to act on everything that is reported to us. PREA was signed into effect by the governor back in May, and we met shortly after the governor signed that. Not all the states are complying, and the state of Texas, I don't think, is part of the states that are complying. But Mary Fallon chose to do that, and so we're going to do our best to meet that standard and just maintain the safety in our facilities. Part of the process is, with the governor's response, is that there are several steps. One of them is education. One of the big things of this is educating everyone. The offenders, when they go through Lexington, when they go out to their individual facilities, they will, they watch a video, and it goes through the different ways that they can contact us, use the phone system, the outside agency, and just tell what they can expect, that they're free from this abuse and how they can report it. And so the education is real big on trying to keep everything safe. The staff members, they also go through an orientation when they're employed, and they'll go through continual education each year. They have in service, and they will be part of that. Next month, part of their self-defense training is actually going to have the PREA training part of that as well. So we get all the staff, and then we continue to do that year after year. So it's just a refresher for all staff, what the expectations for staff and then the offenders are going to be. Part of the orientation that they have is in both English and Spanish. Sometimes we have Spanish-speaking offenders that come through, and we just want to make it clear to everyone that these have the ability to understand what the policies are and they're free from this type of abuse. The main thing also is prevention. We just now got the initiative signed in, and there's a lot of changes that have to take place throughout the agency and at a local level. One thing is staff members of the opposite sex will be, of course, working these housing units. And so we have signage that have been put in place basically to let the offenders know that they are, it is expected that they change their clothes in the appropriate area, that there could be female staff members at this facility that are there. It just lets them know. Also, to keep them aware, female staff that come on to a housing unit that aren't normally working those areas, when they come on, they'll say, female staff on the unit. And so a lot of that is just education of them, so there's no doubt that there may be a female staff member here that's going to be on the unit to be sure and be dressed properly. Another part of this is detection. The shift supervisor, some of the higher level staff will make rounds to all the units, all the floors, and they're unannounced. And what that helps us do is that helps them to ensure that the staff is safe, that these issues aren't occurring, and it also helps to help them notice things like that area over there. We can make that safer by maybe increasing the lighting. There's lighting out. That's kind of a dark area over there. And that's just one other thing that helps keep us safe and does help us comply. They log these down in their logs when they come up, and that helps us show compliance when the audit will take place. Our audit is scheduled the first part of December. I believe it's 3 days. It'll be an auditor from nation, someone that's not just from the DOC. And so there's a lot of education to go on to be able to meet this standard. Right now we're part of the ACA, American Correctional Association, and we have different standards we meet. And it's kind of a different situation when we meet the accreditation for ACA. There's a percentage of what we meet. Sometimes you don't meet all the standards due to some things within the facility. Say natural light, someone doesn't have natural light in a building, that could be something that they can see. So maybe if the facility meets at 99.7%, they meet compliance. The thing that PREA is different is there's no percentage that you pass. It's a pass or a fail. And it also takes into account other facilities that don't meet that standards. It could reflect on the whole agency. So it's not just Bill Johnson passed; it's a nation or an agency-wide, compliance. So that's something we take very seriously. They talk about response. When we find out, we'll go through the chain. Some of those can be investigated at the local level. Some will be passed on to people, the office, investigator general, and they can help us with the investigation. They'll track all these reports, and if sexual assault and harassment has taken place, punishment for the perpetrator is that's going to be enforced. And the good thing about it is after the investigation is complete, if they find out, whatever they find out, rather, a report will be given to the offender and let them know this is what happened, this is what we found, and this is how we took care of the situation. So that's a lot of that is reported to them to let them know this is what happened. So that's pretty much the local aspect of that. There's several mechanisms for reporting. We've talked about those, so it's really a good system. It helps us gain compliance, and it helps us to allow these people to be free from abuse. They've been sentenced, and it's our job to make sure that they're here, that they stay here. We're not to punish them, but to allow them to be free to report any incidents of sexual harassment and sexual assault. Are there any questions?
That all sounds pretty easy. And I tell you, I think all of our facilities are run with, and that's always what's first and foremost, is how do we keep offenders safe. But when you get into the day-to-day, what that means, and all the different situations that we deal with, it is a very complicated issue. On just one level alone, we're talking about offenders, we would think, well, of course offenders know that they can report any incidents of sexual harassment or sexual assault. But what people don't often realize about the prison culture is that many will not step forward. There can almost be this code of silence for fear of what other offenders might do. I mean, that is a huge, huge issue in the agency on many levels, be that contraband or anything else, is getting information from offenders that we can act on. So many of these investigations are very complicated in trying to get enough information where we can't even proceed with an investigation, much less proceed with taking action. So all of these standards are again, hopefully geared towards helping us get better at identifying predatory offenders, and the same thing on staff. There have been, this is staff and offenders, so sadly we have staff that can execute offenders, because this is across male and female facilities. Staff involvement with offenders at an appropriate level. We already take severe sanctions for those kinds of incidents, but the whole, like Justin said, we're trying to, as a nation, reduce this incident. We have, Justin will be our resident expert, and he gets to go to lots of meetings to learn more and more about, how we do these things better with the challenges that we have. But this first challenge, we got notified last week, our audit is December 1, and there are about 43 standards. So that is, and we get to be, and Bill Johnson is the first. So we will, we're kind of helping to build the shell of how this process works as we go. There's actually 4 facilities scheduled for audits in December, but we will be the very first. So we don't really have anybody else's model to go by. So as we build the standards and change our procedures, we're doing that in less than 2 months. So hopefully, we will be successful in that endeavor. That's certainly our goal. One of the many standards in there that we will be impacted by more than any others perhaps are what we do with under 18-year-old offenders. That has been a national debate, and nobody has really figured out. Some states do not send offenders under any circumstances to adult prisons under the age of 18, but Oklahoma has for many years. We have this status called certifying juveniles as adults from 16, well actually under 16. And those are typically pretty tough juvenile aged offenders that have caused many problems in the juvenile facilities or have continued to do escalating crimes that have put them into more serious offenses. So the juvenile institutions can't handle them either. So one of the PREA standards is that we do not have, if we have under 18-year-old offenders in our system, they have to be isolated by sight, sound, and
Visual.
And what? Yeah. Meaning they cannot be anywhere where they can see other offenders over 18 or even hear them. Meaning a dedicated unit for them. So, I don't know what our state is going to determine that. Because we often get, not often, I'd say maybe 2 or 3, 4, less than 5 a year, delayed sentencing offenders that have been certified as an adult and are sentenced under the Delayed Sentencing Act. So they're not sentenced offenders, but they could certainly be housed here. And we can't isolate them from the rest of the population. Now, we do manage them. We've always managed them differently. We put them in an area where we can more closely watch them, but we certainly don't meet the merit of that standard. So the agency is looking at system-wide. What are we going to do with those that are in the system? And I don't know how many we have total system-wide, but it's certainly not an institution's worth of people. So we'll be working on that solution for some time. So it's those kinds of things. Philosophically, I think we would all agree that no matter how hard an offender is between the ages of 15 to 18, they probably still should not be in an adult system. There should be some intermediate placement for them, albeit quite secure. So don't know how that's all going to shake out. But those are things that I think the spirit of the intent of this being in a national agenda is to push states towards solving some of those issues that have just been out there for quite some time. So anyway, I thank Justin, and we actually have a team of people because this is such a huge endeavor. We have our PREA compliance team, and Renae Stewart is on that, Marlene Swin is on that, Justin, and then we have our medical unit. A good number of these do pertain to mental health and medical procedures. So yet one more thing, we're going to be working on Fast and Furious in the next 2 months. So, and the other thing, we wanted to give you an update on the Hobbycraft, and Renae will tell you the new name for what we've decided to name this. So.
It's not a boy or a girl that it could have been. I want to back up real quick. The last time that we had the opportunity to get together, prior to that meeting, my goal was to become involved with the art program. And where do you start with that? It's beginning, it's not established. That can be very overwhelming. I visited with the warden, and she pretty much suggested that I come and share it with you. And I thought, well, what better place to go and ask for advice? And I was disappointed when I found out that the director and Ms. Watkins weren't going to be able to come to this meeting because it's such a pleasure. It would be such a pleasure to introduce all of you. And let me tell you why. When I stood before you the last time I was here, I had no idea what an art program might consist of. I understand Department of Correction policy, but I also know how difficult it can be to implement all of the things that they require. And when I came and I asked for suggestions, I never expected you were going to put me in a launch and light the end and I shoot down the road of accomplishments and things to do. And when everybody left after the meeting last time, I looked at the warden and I just kind of grinned. And she says, I think that went pretty well. And I'm like, yeah, I never expected so many ideas. And now what is the next thing that we should do? And she says, well, I think you better come up with a name. Okay, that's a great idea. That's going to be the first thing we do. So we get to thinking about it. It's like, It's like, we're an emergency response team. We can be challenged with establishing PREA for the state of Oklahoma, and that's just immediate. That's just get up and do it. We got this. We know how to do this. Now it's time to name a program. So we had ideas here. We had ideas there. No, I don't like that one. Well, I don't like that one either. It's like, well, do you like this one? No, I don't like that one either. It's like, wow, this is turning into a major task. What do we do? So we decide, okay, we surrender. We can't do this by ourselves. We've got to have help. So we put it out to the entire staff. It's like, okay, well, we need some help coming up with a name for this program. So everyone starts coming up with names and ideas and names and ideas. And we're like, it's like naming your firstborn. It's like, I'm just not sure if I can live that for the rest of my life. Is this going to be a good name or not? And I'm like, well, I really like this one. I'm sold on it. It's like, okay, well, let's just look at it again tomorrow. I was like, well, I'm not sure I like it as much as I did yesterday. And it's like, okay, why do we not have this ability? And this is why. There's a lot of passion involved in that program. There's a very great deep meaning in that program, not only for the offenders, but obviously for staff, because there for a little while we couldn't even name it. But I want all of you to know that the energy behind all of that came out of this room and from all of you. I don't exactly have everything accomplished as we discussed, although we do have a name, and we are called GAP. Offenders Giving to the Community through an Art Program. I thought that was pretty connected. Yeah, it was almost painful getting there, but we're really proud of our firstborn's names. We have the bead project that we talked about. We're waiting to get a higher volume of the beads ordered. I spoke with Mr. Ryerson, and we've got some little wood burning projects going. The church absolutely loved the gift card idea. We're starting there. And once I went from, was a walk in my journey of life to I'm a full-blown sprinter now. And I'm almost there. But again, I'd like to thank everybody so much for your support and your ideas. And I absolutely will have more updates in the near future.
I didn't ask you to get the amount. Do you have the balance?
I went to get it, but the door was closed. I apologize for that.
I reported it to a Sunday school class. Oh,
I must have been gone that
you
week.
were gone that day. Somewhere around. Oh gosh, I still have that handy. We have it locked in a safe. About between $300 and $400. And so some of the first things that Renee's doing, in order to get the supplies, you got to have someplace to store them. It just seems obvious. I mean, it's the little things that make it hard to do business, like she said, in state government. So you got to have a place to secure the things. And so we're going to probably use some of that to get a cabinet and, again, get those initial orders off. But I think once we get it rolling, it's not going to be hard it'll be hard to keep up with all the projects that I think come our way. We're distinguishing between the two programs, and I know last time she talked about hobby crafts, and individual offenders can participate in hobby crafts, make their own, like the ones that she displayed. They can sell those through our canteen. They have to purchase the materials for it. But this project was to create jobs. And so it is truly, we identify the needs in the community. They make things. They don't personally make any money off of this. This is just truly a community service, which is why we wanted to tie the name so much into it truly is just service to the community after needs been identified. So and they are chomping at the bits.
They are.
They are.
And once we get these projects and kind of get at a point where we're caught up and the word gets out and there's other people with more and different requests, then we're going to get to the volunteer part where we ask people to come in, skilled people, and spend a little time. Just schedule, a couple, 3 hours with the offenders, teaching them some additional skills. So that can be a benefit for them as well.
Thank you, Renae.
You are welcome.
Taking this on in addition to her other many things. So, yeah, I don't. Other than thank you, Renae, for our meal today as well.
You're welcome.
Oh, yes, the
October 10th.
Thank you, October 10th, and I might announce the speaker we've invited
for the GED graduation is named Daryl Legg. So if you haven't been to GED graduation, you know how feel good things that they are. But he is a former graduate of this program, and he was hired by the Cherokee Nation pretty much when he got out. And he's probably been out, does anybody remember?
It's been at least 5 years.
7 years. And the Cherokee Nation hired him, and they have a reentry program through the tribe for offenders. And so he went from working in that program to being the head of it. And last year he won a National Champions for Change award it's a presidential award. And he went to Washington, D.C. and was receiving this honor. So he's talked about coming back, and I think he needed to get his confidence up a bit, but he is going to be our graduation speaker. So we're excited that that's going to be a very special graduation. So if y'all are available, please join us that day. I guess that's it.
Does anyone else have anything?
Oh, one more thing. I want to
Okay.
introduce a new member. I'm sitting here looking at him. Mike Lohrenz is our newest member to the advisory board. My husband would never come to these as the probationer parole officer, so I'm too excited to see Mike here, but he is the new probationer parole officer for Woods and
Alfalfa and Major County.
Major County. So he lives in Isabella, and he's worked for the department forever in a different area, and we are really glad to have him in Alva and actively participating on our advisory council. So.
Okay, if there's no further business, do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor? Okay.
Thank you all.
See you all in November.